And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. Genesis 12:3. In one press conference after another, when referring to the Muslim terror supergroup ISIS, United States President Barack Obama will use the term ISIL instead of their former name ISIS, or current name Islamic State. Have you ever wondered about that? We have. ISIL stands for the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant. Now, to us Westerners, we don't really make much of a distinction, do we? No, honestly, from our perspective, it's all about the same. But how would a Muslim living in the Middle East view it? Just what is the Levant anyway? Let's take a look. The geographical term Levant refers to a multi-nation region in the Middle East. It's a land bridge between Turkey to the north and Egypt to the south. If you look on a map, however, in the near exact middle of the nations that comprise the Levant, guess what you see? Come on, guess. It's Israel. When Barack Obama refers over and over to the Islamic State as ISIL, he is sending a message to Muslims all over the Middle East that he personally does not recognize Israel as a sovereign nation, but as territory belonging to the Islamic State. Now you know why Obama says that he has no plan, no goal, and no stated aim for dealing with ISIS. But he does have a plan, and it's a really nasty, diabolical one. Obama's plan is to drag his feet for as long as he can, doing only the bare minimum that Congress forces him to do. His plan to buy ISIS as much time as possible to make as many gains as they can. Obama painstakingly spells out the letters ISIL, so there is no doubt in your mind. And it's working. The Islamic State has garnered millions of dollars, a vast cache of weapons, and in their latest foray have captured Syrian fighter jets. With each passing day that Obama fulfills his stated aim of doing nothing, the Islamic State grows by leaps and bounds. The ultimate goal, of course, has not changed and will never change. The ultimate goal is the destruction of Israel. Now you know a little bit more why Obama chooses his words so carefully and what's really
was moving too slowly, but the fall of Ramadi has galvanized the Iraqi government. So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province.
That Palmyra siege was not only related to Aleppo battle, but also to what was happening in Iraq. And there are reports that the US-led coalition, which is almost 70 countries, allowed ISIL fighters in Mosul, in Iraq, leave, and that strengthened ISIL here in Syria. Do you think it could be the case?
It could be, but this is only to wash the hand of the American politicians from their responsibility on the attack. When they say just because of Mosul, of course, the Iraqi army attacked Mosul and ISIS left Mosul to Syria. That's not the case. Why? Because they came with different and the huge manpower and firepower that ISIS never had before during this army, and they attack on a huge front, tens of kilometers, that it could be a front of armies. ISIS could only have done that with the support of states, not states. They came with different machine guns, cannons, artillery, everything is different. So it could only happen when they come in this desert with the supervision of the American alliance that supposed to attack them in Al-Raqqa and Mosul and Deir Zor. But it didn't happen. They turned a blind eye on what ISIS is going to do, and that's what I believe, they pushed them toward Palmyra. So it's not about Mosul. We don't have to fall in that trap. It's about Raqqa and Deir Zor. They are very close, only a few hundred kilometers. They could come under the supervision of the American satellites and the American drones and the American support.
From the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, as he has accused the US-led coalition of supporting terrorist groups.
In the beginning, the coalition said that they were going to fight ISIS. They were even accusing us of supporting ISIS. Now they have all disappeared. On the contrary, they are supporting terrorist YPG-PYD, including ISIS. It's very clear. We have confirmed evidence with pictures, photos, and videos.
safe zone, someplace in Syria. We have to get the Gulf states. They have nothing but money. We got to get them to fund it. We got to get them to put up
the Executive Director at the Ron Paul Institute and joins us now. Hello to you, Daniel. Firstly, let's just talk about the statement that was made by the Defence Ministry just a couple of hours ago. Very strong accusations that America is colluding with ISIL. What sort of reaction would you expect from America on this statement?
Well, I think what the U.S. has done, certainly in Al-Tanf, has benefited ISIL. I don't know about collusion. You could say indirect collusion, but certainly when you have Syrian government allied forces approaching a firefight with ISIL, with ISIS, and the U.S. attacks the people that are fighting ISIS, you have no other conclusion but the fact that the U.S. actions are benefiting ISIS. I don't know if that is the intent. I suspect it is not the intent, but that certainly is the effect of U.S. action in the region.
I mean, and in terms of everybody supposedly is meant to be fighting ISIL at the moment, but clearly there's a breakdown in cooperation, isn't there?
There's not a breakdown in cooperation. It's a simple fact that the United States has set up a base in another country's territory without their permission to do so. And when that other country is attempting to expel a terrorist force from their own soil, the U.S. claims that in self-defense, it is attacking the country on which they're illegally perched. So it's not a lack of communication. It's a problem of criminality on the part of the U.S. government.
Has expressed alarm over the deployment of American rocket launchers in Syria. In a statement, the ministry warned that the weapons could undermine the campaign against Islamic State terrorists.
Deployment of any kind of foreign weapons on Syrian territory, especially of multiple rocket launchers, has to be agreed with the government of the sovereign country. The firing range of the HIMARS rocket launcher means it can't support the US-backed Syrian Democratic Forces fighting ISIL in Raqqa. So what goals does the US really have in Syria, and who are the American service personnel really going to fight against?
The weapon referred to in that statement is the High Mobility Artillery Rocket System. It's capable of destroying air defense systems, trucks and personnel carriers.
The U.S. military has stepped up its presence and firepower in the highly strategic deserts of southeastern Syria. According to U.S.-backed militants, American forces have set up a second base around 65 kilometers from At-Tanf in Homs province. Militants say more U.S. troops and weapons are arriving at both bases. Special forces are also patrolling distances up to 100 kilometers from At-Tanf. Meanwhile, the U.S. has moved its long-range artillery to the region. A senior U.S. intelligence official describes the deployment as a significant boost, as the artillery, known as HIMARS, has a range of 300 kilometers. Tensions have escalated recently near At-Tanf in Syria's Badia deserts near the Iraqi border. U.S. warplanes have twice bombed Syrian troops advancing on terrorists. American forces are deployed in Syria without the consent of the government in Damascus. To discuss that, we're now joined by Mike Harris, who is editor at Veterans Day, and he's joining us live now from Phoenix, Arizona via Skype. Mr. Harris, you know, one base was one too many. Why does the U.S. need two now?
Well, that's an interesting question, but I want to point out very explicitly that the U.S. is acting very, very illegally. This is not constitutionally allowed under the U.S. government, and this is proof that the U.S. government has been hijacked and has betrayed the American people. General Mattis, I'm ashamed of him. He should resign or he should be tried for treason, because what he's doing right now is unconstitutional. He has no congressional authority. Congress has not declared a state of war. The U.S. is operating a de facto invasion of Syria. In addition to which, the U.S., in addition to supplying over $1 billion worth of ordnance to ISIS. This is evidenced by Tulsi Gabbard's bill to stop supplying terrorists. The U.S. is now providing air support for terrorists. As you stated in the run-up to this, the U.S. has twice now bombed Syrian Arab army troops while they're advancing on ISIS positions. This looks a lot like the United States is not only did they assist in creating ISIS, but now they're providing air support and other technical support to the ISIS terrorists themselves. The implications of this are very, very deep. That is that the U.S. is creating an enemy in order to go fight an enemy, and they're using ISIS as the excuse to go in there and topple the Syrian government, is what it looks like to me.
And so why is
on the issue? He released a statement expressing his condolences over the deadly attacks, but in the very same message said that that's what happens with states who sponsor terrorism. It is a criticism he's made before.
For decades, Iran has fueled the fires of sectarian conflict and terror, threatening the region and causing so much violence. All nations of conscience must work together to isolate Iran. There is a growing realization among your Arab neighbors that they have common cause with you in the threat posed by Iran, and it is indeed a threat.
Trump said time and again that we'll do whatever it takes to defeat terrorism and those supporting it.
The nation of Qatar has historically been a funder of terrorism at a very high level.
So everyone was waiting to see what actions the U.S. would take against the Gulf country. Sanctions, perhaps? But no. Instead, the U.S. has signed a deal to sell Doha $12 billion worth of fighter jets, and there are plans to sell them even more later this year. And that's not all. 2 U.S. Navy combat ships have reportedly arrived in Doha to carry out joint drills with the Qatari Navy. Conflicting messages much?